Welcome to Dubai Real Estate Unplugged, once again brought to you by the team here at House & House Real Estate. I'm Luke Remington. I've probably said that quite a few times before, but today I'm going to be bringing to you Q2 insights for the sales and leasing departments in real estate sector. I'm joined by two of the podcast regulars, Charlie Bannon and Thomas Polson. They are regulars, but if you haven't listened to them before, Charlie Bannon.
Sales director for House & House, residential teams, just over 90 consultants now, so overseeing that.
Lots of people to look after now.
Lots of people, lots of fun.
Thomas.
Hello, everyone. As Luke kindly introduced me, in charge of the leasing team, currently overseeing around 55 brokers now, currently in the leasing team. So, yeah, all fun and games.
You've got another 6 months, Tom?
I have. I was privileged to be given the promotion to the sales director, which will take into effect as of probably in the new year, 2024. So yeah, really excited for that challenge ahead.
Nice one.
Been with the company since 2016 and
brilliant
to spend another few years here.
So that is going to give listeners an insight that we're obviously taking on another sales director, and partly that's probably going to be down to a booming market and our growth plans, etc., etc. Charlie, start us off. What has been the most significant pattern in the sales market that you've witnessed? So I know we're talking about Q2, but to go over a 3-month period is probably quite difficult. So I'll allow you to probably go for the half year. So let's go from Jan to June. Any patterns? What are we seeing?
I think just continued growth. I think that the refreshing part for this year is that it's a little bit more stable.
Yeah.
It's not crazy 10-15% price jumps. It's very stable, 2-3% price jumps monthly, which I think gives people investing into the market or people already into the market a little bit more confidence about the future of their money. They don't want to see huge increases because that could potentially mean huge decreases.
Yeah.
I think property is a long-term game, and I think stable growth is probably what people want to see and expect to see. Although it's nice for it to jump up massively, it is a little bit concerning maybe to see that on the outside looking in.
Yeah.
So I think stable growth is probably the way to describe this year, and positive stable growth, which is really good to see. It's bringing a lot of confidence to the market.
So the confidence you're seeing, is this confidence from the seller? If I'm a seller, I've got lots of confidence, but what about the buyers? Have they got confidence? Because I don't know whether it was another podcast I was listening to or some kind of social media advert, but missing the boat seems to be, are you hearing that buyers are saying, have I missed the boat?
It's the impossible question, and everyone always gets it right when they buy a house. I think that's probably the best way to describe it. If you're in the position to buy a house now and you want to invest your money into property, it's a great time to do so. If you feel like something's going to change over the next 3 months, fine, back that and do it in 3 months' time. But I suppose what we hear and see a lot is the people that say, oh, now's not the right time. It will be the right time in 4 months' time because this is going to happen in this part of the world and I expect this is going to happen. And then in 4 months' time, that doesn't quite go the way it was planned, and then they push it back another 4 months. And then if you've done that for the previous 8 months, this year and into the end of last year, you're spending a lot more money on a property that you could have bought in December last year.
Do you not feel the people or the clients that potentially doing those are like the ones that maybe I know we've had the crypto podcast with Paul recently, but it's the same ones that, I missed Bitcoin at this price, but now it's too expensive and I'm not going to pay that. If someone hasn't, got involved in the last kind of 6 to 8 months, are we seeing these buyers now coming into it? I know it's kind of quite a wide range topic to look at, but there can't be many buyers that were looking on our books in December 2022 that are still looking in June, July 2023.
I think they're probably still looking at the market. I think that's probably the difference between...
But everyone looks at the market, right?
Exactly. And I think that crypto is a great example. My lack of understanding around crypto leads me to have no confidence in making a strong decision. So I'd rely on someone else's opinion, yours or Paul's.
Yeah.
But that's where I'd gain my knowledge from. And I think property is probably, it's a more traditional asset, a more traditional investment. So people have got lots more opinions around property But I suppose unless you've been in the market or you're close to the market, then it's really hard to know if you're making an educated decision or an emotional decision. And I think there's probably an element of both when you're making any investment. But I suppose traditionally trusting the process with property investment over a prolonged period of time, you're probably going to win. And I think that's why it's considered one of the safest ways to invest your money and to make money on the money that you've worked quite hard for.
Yeah. Dubai is obviously seeing, I was speaking to a client the other day from America, and they said, Luke, isn't it amazing that you're working in the best real estate market in the world? And it makes you think. And then when you hear Josh Vegan talking about that, who's, a real estate trainer, or arguably one of the best real estate trainers in the world, coming from Australia, he's also pitched that to 200-300 people in the company. So, there's numerous clients from different parts of the world saying you are in the best real estate market in the world. Are the brokers seeing this as well? Are they coming to you and saying, Charlie, it's ridiculous. We just cannot keep up with it. We the kind of last 12 months, but each month it's just going from strength to strength.
Yeah, managing the buyers, I think, is what they're struggling with, because there's so much buyer inquiry. Yeah. There's so many people interested to talk about buying a house, and that just drives the leads. And obviously a percentage of them actually go on to transact, and we just try to capture as much of that as possible. So I suppose from a broker's perspective at the moment, the challenges they face is probably time management, understanding where to spend their time and who to spend it with, and also trying to find stock that is going to sell and sellers that do want to sell. Because again, if you've invested into a property or a number of properties in Dubai, even if you don't want to sell, you might be speaking to your real estate broker about the market, how it's performing, so that you can make better decisions for the future. And I suppose that's where a broker's time is spent. It might not be spending time with a client who's looking to make a move right now, but it might just be that educational process of looping them into what's happening to help them go away and run the numbers and make an informed decision, whether that be a seller or a buyer. So it's just lots of conversation from a broker's perspective, and having that conversation with a high number of people naturally is intensive.
Yeah. Are we still seeing a lack of supply?
Yes.
We are.
In comparison to how many people want to buy a house, for sure. And I think if you narrow it down as well into, like we're seeing with Tom, I'd imagine the rents continuing to rise is something I've said probably on the podcast before if you've listened to it, but the rents have risen to a point where it makes sense to buy a house as opposed to rent one financially in comparison to what your annual rent can cost. So that creates a demand of a wave of end user buyers, and the lack of properties for sale is there when it comes down to, I want to buy a house, I need to move into it in 8 weeks' time. That's where the lack of supply lands.
And which areas are you seeing at the moment where you've got an increase? You talked about the number of brokers that you're currently managing at the moment. You're increasing brokers in particular areas, and that is because of the demand that we're seeing. Which areas would you say, or certainly at House and House, that we're seeing particularly strong buyer activity, therefore we've got to increase the number of brokers that can cater and look after these buyers? Because what unfortunately happens in the industry is we do get tarred with a bad brush, and customer service levels, although from recently buying a property in the UK, I think whereas I would have thought customer service levels probably wouldn't be as good here as they would be there, I was actually astounded about how bad it actually was there. For instance, you can buy a property and you go and ask the agent to go and get your electricity and gas meter reading after, and they're like, well, that's not my job, I'm not doing that. Oh, can you show me over on a Sunday? Oh no, we don't do viewings on a Sunday. Could you do me a viewing on Monday? Well, actually Monday's a bank holiday, so we can't do the viewing on a Monday. All right, well, I tell you what, can you do it on the Tuesday, but I'm flying out in the morning, so can you do it before 9 o'clock? No, we don't start work till 9. It actually makes you realise that the service levels are actually very good here. But I am digressing. But what I'm trying to say is, where are we increasing broker levels to cater for the demand? Where's the big areas? I know you're probably going to throw Dubai Hills Estate at me.
Yeah, the Dubai Hills Estate's an incredible area, and it's a great opportunity for someone to buy a home. And we've definitely increased the number of brokers over the last 6 months, let alone 12. We've increased numbers in downtown, which is one of the more mature communities, and we're still adding people in there, and that's actually shown in the number of buyers we've registered. Let me get the stat for you here.
So when we look at it, we're saying that in Q2 secondary sales, total values have gone up by 20%. Total volume transaction has gone up by 17%. But we've had, continued growth in areas like downtown, Dubai Land. Dubai Land isn't as commonly known to a lot of people, but Tom, you've got Arabian Ranches.
Yeah, Arabian Ranches 1, 2, and 3 now.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah.
You've got the communities such as Serena,
yeah.
Mira Oasis.
Yeah.
Damat Kills, Town Square, kind of that Sakim, Al Qudra.
So where it's kind of pushing people out, so you're going to get probably more value for money where compared to what you were talking about in downtown.
We've got Talal Al Gaff in there as well. We've got a real drive at the moment of trying to build a team there, because it's slowly but surely handing over, starting first and foremost with the most affordable properties, the townhouses.
I love Talal Al Gaff. Why am I not hearing more about Talal Al Gaff?
Probably because you're not looking for it. I think there's lots of speak about Talal Al Gaff.
Right.
It was in the top.
Have they started handing over yet?
Yes.
Okay.
The townhouses have.
Okay.
Alans.
Yeah.
They've started handing over.
First Majid Al Futtaim development in Dubai.
Residential development. They built Mall of Emirates and various other bits and bobs.
Yeah, I think they did a development in Sharjah, which was quite good.
Yeah, I think it'll be a great community, especially as their first one. And I think that this is what we need to match the demand for an end user buyer. Anyone looking to sell a property there, it isn't rented. It's just handed over. It's available to the market. So I think that will naturally drive people into the community.
Yeah. Greens Views, we've seen an increase in buyer activity. We can go on. We can get Jumeirah Park. There's so many where we've seen an increase in buyer activity. Planning ahead, Charlie, for the next 6 months, where would you see, or where's your crystal ball telling you we need to get more people working in that area because buyers are going to love it?
Talal Al Gaff, Dubai Creek.
Dubai Creek. Well, again, it's just amazing down there.
And I think that
is growth. There is growth there.
I think, and the growth that you're referring to, I know, is capital appreciation growth. Yeah. And I think that a lot of investors in Dubai look at the rental return on investment. Yeah. Whereas if looking at London, you probably compare, okay, my house is worth this today. Yeah. In 20 years' time, it's probably going to close to double in value. Yeah. Whereas in Dubai, I don't think you can draw that level of confidence just yet, because it's such an immature market in comparison. Yeah. You don't have the graphs to back up those words. Whereas Dubai Creek, if you just compare it like for like, waterfront development, price per square foot in comparison to Blue Waters, Emaar Beachfront. Yeah. Now, it is a very different development to those two I've just mentioned, but still the price does seem very, very good.
In terms of different, it's got the water location, right?
Yes.
But you're just going further out.
You're going further out, and obviously Blue Waters has got its own uniqueness, arguably maybe a bit more plush, a bit more chic. And then if you look at Emaar Beachfront, obviously you've got the towers that are very comparable to Dubai Creek. Then you've got lots of branded residents as well, which is coming up.
Yeah, so Elise Arban's
Elise Arban address, Dubai Creek's got address. Yeah. And if you compare the price point of address Dubai Creek in comparison to the other addresses, it still provides good value.
I was looking at an address unit the other day that one of the brokers had with an amazing creek view, and it was for a 2-bed. It was around 3 million. Now you would have put that, if you put that in beachfront, I don't know, I'm going to guess, but you're probably somewhere 8, 9, and then if you look in JBR, you're probably looking at 12, 13, somewhere around that kind of figure. So you're definitely getting a lot more bang for your buck. Thomas, let's move on to the rentals. We know tenants are. We've been talking about tenants, and we're unfortunately saying they've probably got the bad end of the stick at the moment. Yeah. Are we seeing any change in that front?
No, I actually spoke to I've been doing my quarterly reviews of the team, that we just do a quite more of an intensive catch up every quarter, just going through. And I ask them, what are they noticing about prices, obviously in preparation for this as well. And just to get actually, we got, ears to the ground on it. And I think a lot of them, a few of them are saying it's more stabilizing, like quarter on quarter, like this year, but nevertheless still stabilizing at a very high level.
Why do you think that would be?
Well, it's the adage of, so as Charlie was mentioning about, everything's tenanted right now, everything's tenants, but a lot of villa communities, a lot of apartment, the lack of supply in the market is still there for rental. And of course, the differences between obviously the sales and lease, so you've got, landlords got existing tenants in there.
Yeah.
And the fact that the way the laws work, which I know we've touched upon in various podcasts, but just for anyone, for a refresher, is that landlords can only raise rents certain amounts per year. There is a cap to it, and that would be a maximum of 20%. But the way it works, sometimes they may not even be entitled to that, even if the market's jumped up several, a lot more than that. A lot of tenants are naturally taking advantage of the fact that the laws do favour them in that sense, and they're renewing at cheaper prices, a more affordable price than what the market's doing. If you don't need to move, you're definitely not going to move. And as I've touched upon in previous podcasts, when I've came here back in 2016, the market was taking a bit of a dip, and then it continued to do so for 2017 into 18. And a lot of people, to get that Dubai experience, used to move from community to community or upsize just because they could. They were getting more value for money back then. That just doesn't happen now because you cannot get anywhere near the equivalent price of what you're probably paying in rent for the same product now.
So stay where you are, pay the same rent, and you haven't got moving costs, you haven't got broker costs, you haven't got the associated hassle of, trundling around different areas looking at stuff, and that it's that kind of red or black. Am I going to get a good landlord who's going to help me and look after me and sympathize when I've got a water leak, or is it going to be someone that doesn't answer the phone, is unresponsive, etc.?
Definitely. And I think that we do naturally see tenants downsize if they want to, just because they want maybe they might have a lot of headaches with, if they're in an older community, I use that word, 10 years plus. Okay, it's seen as quite old out in Dubai naturally, because it's always handovers every year of new properties. I think some people do choose a modern lifestyle and are prepared to move out further out into past some more traditional areas, which are typically, as we touched upon, out towards the desert, where that Al Qudra corridor, that Dubai land and so on, just to get a brand new place.
And that's gonna be the market conditions, I suppose, because as things get more expensive in the centre, people have to push out.
It's a ripple effect, isn't it?
Yeah.
And actually, leading nicely on to that, I spoke to a lady in the team who covers Mira and Mira Oasis. Okay, now Mira was Emar's first affordable villa community. That was kind of the
I can remember they were fighting. There was fights in the queue. So if you actually go onto YouTube, you can actually see there was fighting to get your hands on one of these. This would have been circa 2012, 2013. I think it made some foreign headlines that that they're delivering, or they're selling properties in Dubai, and that there's scuffles going on, people selling tokens. So in that day, you would have got a token, then you queue up for 24, 48 hours. Usually you would have got maybe...
They used to pay people to stand in the line for them.
So people actually that weren't buying property...
I wonder how many of them UK brokers would queue in the line for 48 hours that you dealt with.
Exactly, yeah. But they were, you can actually make, I don't know, some people were making £10,000-20,000 by just queuing up overnight. I actually remember speaking to a friend, he's like, I'll do that.
Yeah, I would as well.
But so the Mira community is actually...
So sorry, back to touch upon it. So I look, because she told me that the entry level now to rent there,
160,
150, 160.
Wow.
And I couldn't believe it. Not that I didn't believe it, I didn't not trust it, but because I remember when we were brokering, and back that was brand new, and I remember 3 years ago, I looked back at a historical contract that we approved, because I was thinking I never used to approve contracts.
We had a lot exclusive, didn't we? There,
yeah, and it was 75,000 dirham. The cheapest one we've done then, 3 years ago. July 3 years ago.
So it's doubled.
So literally 3 years ago.
That was Mira Oasis, which is right next door that we had those.
I remember we've done properties deals in Mira around the 80 to 90,000 in the Mira 1, Mira Oasis next door, 75. Now that wasn't probably the lowest it may have got to, but doubling in 100% increase in 3 years is quite. Now you can see why people renew, right? And
Charlie,
there's a lack of supply even in these newer communities, which then forces people out even further.
Yeah, Charlie, I'll put you on the spot. You are a landlord and you own a Mira property. You've had the same tenant in there during the more difficult times that had that tenant decided to leave, you probably deep down would have thought, I'm a bit gutted, I've got to go back to the market. It could be not rented now for the next 2-3 months while, you know, the leasing team find you a tenant. Because things weren't jumping out overnight, Tom. They would go, you know, weeks or months. So you've got a tenant paying you somewhere in the region of 100,000, let's say, or 105 or 110 now. But realistically, Thomas is now saying the values are 150, 160. How does it make you feel? I know it's not good for the tenants, but how does it? And I feel we're always on the side of the tenants, and I know maybe the law will be on the side of the tenants, but let's think about it from the landlord side. You put yourself in the shoes of that landlord. You're 45, 50k down. What is going through your head?
I think there's context to the question. Am I a landlord that owns one investment property in Dubai? That would be my mirror one. I've got a mortgage on it. Maybe I'm just about breaking even on it, but I might behave in a different manner to if I've got 30 properties across Dubai and overall I'm winning on the investment. So it depends on where you're at as a landlord, but if I wanted to do something about it,
yeah,
and I could do what I could legally with the rent increases, if I felt like that wasn't okay for me, so the only option I've really got is to have a conversation with the tenant. So look, I'm in a really tight spot, and this is why we know they're going for this.
Yeah.
And then you've got, again, it depends on the psyche of the tenant. Is the tenant a reasonable person that respects that I'm a good landlord and is willing to accommodate me to, if we can stay in a relationship, I suppose, or are they a tenant that goes, well, the law's the law, Charlie.
Yeah.
Move on.
Yeah.
Like, it is what it is.
But then, you know, what I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, Thomas, the rental calculator hasn't been updated for a few years. So you have got that in your favour. But then is this then putting pressure on the landlord to say, well, legally, I'm stuck. However, I can sell the property and then I can look for something vacant that I can then rent back out, because there is no real emotional attachment to the property, because it's just a return on investment. And this is, you know, going back to whether you've got one or whether you've got 30. Sometimes you find the one that the client that's got 30 property are so savvy, they're looking at, you know, the fills literally on what their returns are. So, you know, is it? Are you seeing properties, buyers coming to the market? They're saying, well, I've just sold that because it's rented, but I just want something similar. But I need to get 7 or 8% return.
That seller's in a tight spot as well, because they're trying to sell a property that's got a tenant in situ, where it has to be given a 12-month notice by the buyer, unless we agree the tenant can move out earlier, which in this example they probably wouldn't. The seller's going to take a hit on the sale price, because selling to an investor who's buying a poor return on investment, it's going to affect their price they're going to get out of it to be able to put into a new one. So it actually makes their hole a little bit deeper.
Yeah.
They'd have to probably take a hit on the price to get out of that property, and then probably put more money in to get into the new one to have a stronger return.
Yeah. Okay.
On something vacant.
Are we into a slower period? We're recording this now, mid-July. We've got August. Roads are quieter. However, I saw on the
traffic last night thinking, I thought it was the school holidays. I was thinking,
really?
That actually made me prompt. I thought in my head, like, it used to be a lot quieter, right? The roads. And now, even in the summer holidays,
I think it's just
noticeably still traffic.
Still a lot going on.
There's more people.
Yeah,
right? This is the reason the market's doing so well. It's closely linked to the population growth, and the stats have come out. I can't remember the number, but the stats have come out for how much population has grown between January and June this year. It's grown. So I
think there's 50,000 new residents.
That sounds right. I didn't want to mention in case it was wrong, but I think that's the number. But I think that it won't be as quiet as previous summers. It's summer in Dubai. People are leaving. Of course they are. We notice a difference, have slightly, but I think that wholly, the brokers that are still here working and putting their head down and trying to find a business, it's there for them.
Did you see an article the other day on Arabian Business that, again, with transactions, I think they must have a spot for transaction, a weekly transaction update where they're updating, you know, the UAE regarding the number of transactions that have been reported at DLD. And I believe it was, a phenomenal billion figure in a day. and this was on transaction. The transactions that we're seeing, Charlie, are these the transactions that have been agreed or the transactions that have transferred?
It's transferred.
Okay, so someone's got the keys or the code or the title deed. They've bought the property. So those then we're looking at were probably agreed 2-3 months ago.
Anywhere from 4 to 8 weeks, I'd say.
So that would be March numbers around that.
Yes.
Okay, March, April numbers.
That's it.
Okay, so the figures that we're going to get maybe in October, we could then see if we've got the slowdown from the summer.
Exactly that, yes.
Okay. Thomas, summer for rentals, good time to start looking?
100%. I spoke to the whole team before them because I think there's a common misconception that, as we just touched upon, that the road's empty and everyone leaves. But I'll be honest, the last 2 years, we've done really good summers all through them, June, July, August, and I showed them the figures as well, just to be fully transparent. No excuses, in terms of you can't take your foot off the gas now. There's so many people, as we just said, relocating here. Summer is a really popular time, especially in the villa communities in line with the new school year, where we see a lot of transactions happen. We're in July now, we're halfway through. We're on track for a really good month.
Yeah.
And I actually imagine that August typically will be even busier because the last minute panic to get the kids in and settled before September, because out here sometimes you need to have a JARI registered and for sponsorships and get your names in the schools and have a permanent residence, and will help you in some cases as well get them spots. So the sooner these families do that, the quicker they can get themselves all their ducks in a row, as they say, for the upcoming school year.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm really optimistic about this summer as well. I think that, the last 3 months we registered over 6,000 people looking for properties to rent, and that was Q2.
6,000.
Yeah, that's just 6,000 individual, people. I mean, how the number of properties they inquired on as well, would be in the tens of thousands of inquiries.
Yeah.
So
it gives you an idea, to the listeners, if, we got a population that's grown of 50,000, a circa 50,000, we've got, as a company, we're not the biggest and we don't cover every area. We would be in that kind of top 5, top 10 in terms of the number of employees, real estate employees. But it's a huge amount, 6,000. And in terms of buyers, I can imagine, Charlie, you've probably got 6,000+, I would have thought, because you've got quite a few more sales brokers than Thomas has leasing. I think generally looking at this, you've got Charlie's basically saying that we're not seeing the massive jumps month on month. We're seeing a bit more stability, but we've still got good times ahead. Thomas is saying there's a more availability than what there probably once was. So if I was a tenant, there's a few more options out there.
Yeah, summer typically does present a few more empty properties. I think, naturally it's the most transient time.
Yeah.
And sometimes we have to wait for properties to become empty before viewing them and so on. So yeah, typically stock levels are higher.
Yeah.
But that's for a very limited period of time. As I said, I reckon right now the stock levels are high, but give it this time next month, honestly, it can happen that quickly. There will be panic stations, I think, for a lot of owners and tenants as well, trying to get these properties rented. So yeah, we're on the cusp of I think a lot of activity.
I don't see any slowdown. I genuinely don't see any slowdown. I in fact bought a property myself last month, and I wouldn't be doing it if I didn't have complete faith. I think the tabloid, everything is so positive out there at the moment, and it seems for every one negative comment you see about the press about your own country or other countries that you may have family in, or the kind of the American dream where we're looking there or something, you see about 10 positives in Dubai, and we live here, we see it, we breathe it, and it's honestly it's amazing to be. I think I was actually thinking the other day, I'm so lucky to be here, and thank God in 2012 I decided to make that jump.
Speaking to one of the lads yesterday who's just going back home to Scotland, and he said his mum asked him, do you think you'll come back? And he was like, no chance. Like this, like sort of first trip back sort of cemented that Dubai's the place for me.
Yeah.
And she said, okay, cool, I'm selling the house, I'm going to move out as well.
Interesting stat. Again, this is going to be very vague because I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was something in the region of 70%, or I think it was 70, maybe 75%, but it was a high number. 76% consider long-term investment. I don't know. It's very grey because that was only the headline. I'm not sure if it's 76% investment on a crypto or 76% on, but a long-term investment. I think people's perception is, I now can retire here. I can see my life here, and I could probably, as morbid as it sounds, I can probably see the rest of my days here. I genuinely think people can see that. Which is really nice to see as well, right?
Yeah, and this conversation's only really sparked since post-COVID and how well it's been managed.
Yeah, and the future management, the 2040 vision plans, and everything that's coming in, and that sector. Anyway, guys, let's wrap it up there. Thank you ever so much. Usual feedback from me, guys. Comments, tags to Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook can be found in the show notes. If you've got any questions, you can by all means throw those to us, and we can answer those in future podcasts. Thanks ever so much for your time, and speak soon.